If your roses put on one beautiful show, give you a handful of blooms, and then spend the rest of the season sitting there like they've retired, stop what you're doing and listen to this. Because the difference between a rose bush that blooms in one short burst and a rose that keeps throwing out flower after flower for months is not luck, and it is definitely not some mysterious gift you either have or you don't. It comes down to a handful of very specific things, and honestly, some of them are the exact opposite of the advice most people have been following for years. Here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to grow roses that don't just survive, but keep producing fresh, healthy blooms again and again. The kind that make your garden look expensive, keep your vases full, and have people asking you what you're feeding them. You do not need to be a master rosarian. You do not need a greenhouse. And you do not need to fuss over your plants every single day. You just need to do these 10 things in the right order. Let's get into it. Number 1. Start with roses that actually want to rebloom. Let's fix the biggest mistake right away, because if you get this part wrong, everything else becomes harder. Not all roses are built to flower over and over. Some bloom once in a big, spectacular flush, and then they're basically done for the season. If you planted a variety like that, no amount of fertilizer, pruning, or wishful thinking is going to turn it into a nonstop bloomer. So the first secret is simple. Grow repeat blooming roses. Look for varieties described as repeat flowering, continuous blooming, or reblooming. Floribundas, many shrub roses, and a lot of modern landscape roses are bred specifically to keep pushing new blooms instead of giving you one dramatic performance and calling it a year. And while we're here, give them the one thing roses never negotiate on, which is sun. Real sun. Not bright shade, not dappled light. Roses that bloom heavily need at least 6 hours of direct sun, and more is usually even better. If your rose is sitting in a spot that gets a little morning light and then spends the rest of the day tucked behind a fence, it is not being shy. It is being underpowered. The more sunlight your rose gets, the more energy it has to keep setting buds instead of just hanging on. Number 2, stop feeding leaves and start feeding flowers. This is where a lot of gardeners accidentally grow a giant green rose bush with barely any flowers on it. They see a tired plant, panic, and dump on a heavy nitrogen fertilizer. And nitrogen absolutely makes a rose grow. The problem is, it makes it grow leaves and stems first, so you end up with lush foliage, long canes, and fewer blooms than you expected. If you want flowers, your feeding has to support flowering, not just growth. Use a rose fertilizer or balanced bloom feed on a steady schedule during the active growing season. Think of it this way. You are not trying to make your rose enormous. You are trying to keep it productive. A plant that gets the right nutrients at the right time has the energy to replace old blooms with new buds instead of stalling out after one flush. And don't overdo it. Roses are hungry, but they are not impressed by extremes. Light, regular feeding beats one giant blast every time. Too much fertilizer can stress the roots, push weak growth, and make the plant more attractive to pests. Feed steadily, not desperately. Number 3, water deeply, not constantly. If you want roses to keep blooming, shallow watering has to go. A quick sprinkle every day feels responsible, but it creates weak, surface-level roots and a needy plant that wilts the moment the weather gets hot. That kind of rose spends more energy surviving than blooming. What roses want is a deep soak at the root zone, water long enough for the moisture to move down into the soil where the roots actually need it. Then let the top layer dry a bit before you water again. That rhythm trains the roots to go deeper. And deeper roots mean a stronger, more resilient plant that can support more flowers over a longer stretch of time. And always water the soil, not the leaves. Wet foliage invites disease, and disease is one of the fastest ways to shut down flowering. Morning is best because it gives the plant time to dry and use that moisture during the warm part of the day. Deep watering builds a tougher rose. Constant sprinkling builds a needy one. Number 4. Mulch the root zone like it actually matters. Mulch does not look exciting, but for roses, it is one of the quietest bloom boosters you can use. A rose that deals with constant swings between hot and dry, then wet and stressed, is not going to flower at full strength for very long. It will spend too much energy just trying to regulate itself. A 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch fixes that. It keeps moisture more even, cools the root zone during heat, slows If your roses put on one beautiful show, give you a handful of blooms, and then spend the rest of the season sitting there like they've retired, stop what you're doing and listen to this. Because the difference between a rose bush that blooms in one short burst and a rose that keeps throwing out flower after flower for months is not luck. And it is definitely not some mysterious gift you either have or you don't. It comes down to a handful of very specific things, and honestly, some of them are the exact opposite of the advice most people have been following for years. Down weeds, and helps the soil stay stable instead of swinging from one extreme to another. Stable roots create steady growth, and steady growth creates more blooms. There's another benefit most people forget. Mulch also reduces soil splash. When rain or watering bounces soil up onto the lower leaves, it can carry disease with it. Mulch creates a buffer that helps keep the foliage cleaner and healthier. Just keep it a little away from the base of the canes. You want protected roots, not a damp collar around the stem. Number 5, prune for new blooming wood, not just for shape. A lot of people think pruning roses is just about making the bush look neat. It's not. Pruning is one of the main ways you tell the plant where to put its energy. Roses bloom best when they are regularly encouraged to produce strong new shoots, because new shoots are where fresh flowers come from. That means you do your major structural pruning at the right time for your climate. Then stay alert through the season for weak, crossing, dead, or unproductive growth. If the center of the plant is crowded, open it up. If skinny little stems are draining energy and never producing much, remove them. If 2 canes are rubbing, one of them has to go. Here's the point. Every bit of energy the rose spends maintaining weak, tangled growth is energy. It is not spending on buds. A well-pruned rose has air, light, and room to keep generating fresh flowering stems. Pruning is not punishment. It is redirection. Number 6, deadhead the right way, or the plant slows down. This one is huge. A rose's job is to reproduce. Once a flower starts fading, the plant begins moving towards seed production, and the moment it thinks the mission is accomplished, bloom production starts to slow. If you leave old flowers sitting on the bush, you are telling the plant, you're done here, so deadhead. But deadhead correctly. Don't just snap off the dead petals or clip the flower head only. Follow that stem down to a strong outward-facing leaf, ideally one with 5 leaflets, and make your cut just above it. That is where the plant has a much better chance of pushing vigorous new growth and another strong flowering stem. A lazy cut gives you weak regrowth. A smart cut gives you the next wave of blooms. And do not wait until the whole bush looks tired. The faster you remove fading flowers, the faster the plant gets the message to make more. Number 7, cut roses for the house more often than feels comfortable. If you've been babying your roses because you're afraid cutting them will reduce the display outside, I want you to stop thinking that way. In many repeat blooming roses, strategic cutting is one of the best ways to encourage more flowers. Just like deadheading, cutting tells the plant to replace what it lost. The trick is to cut with purpose. Don't just take the flower head on a tiny stem. Cut a longer stem back to a healthy leaf node so the plant can branch and push fresh growth from a strong point. That gives you a better stem for the vase and sets up a better flush on the bush. And there's a psychological benefit here too. The gardeners with the best blooming roses are usually the ones interacting with their plants often. They notice pests earlier, they spot disease earlier, they deadhead on time, they feed on schedule. Cutting blooms regularly keeps you in rhythm with the plant, and that rhythm is what creates season-long performance. Number 8, keep air moving and leaves dry. People often assume roses are difficult because they're delicate. That's not really the issue. The issue is that roses hate being crowded, humid, and slow to dry out. When foliage stays damp and air can't move through the plant, fungal problems show up fast, and once disease gets rolling, bloom production always suffers. So give your roses space. Don't jam them together because you want an instant full bed. A crowded rose garden may look lush for a moment, but it creates the exact conditions black spot, mildew, and general stress love most. Space them so air can move. Prune to keep the center open. Water at the base. Let the morning sun dry them off quickly. Healthy leaves are solar panels. The more clean, healthy foliage your rose keeps, the more energy it has available to make flowers. Once the leaves are struggling, the blooms always pay the price. Number 9, Stay ahead of pests and disease before they steal a whole flush. This is where many gardeners lose the battle without realizing it. By the time aphids have covered the new growth, or black spot has spread through the lower leaves, or spider mites have stressed the plant in a hot spell, your next bloom cycle is already compromised. Roses do not bloom well when they're under attack. The secret is not panic. The secret is consistency. Check your roses every week. Look at the new shoots, the undersides of leaves, the flower buds, and the lower foliage. Catch problems early while they are still small. A quick response early is easy. A delayed response becomes a season-long headache. And remember, the best pest control starts with plant health. A rose in the right sun, with the right spacing, the right water, and the right feeding schedule is naturally stronger and better able to recover. Weak, stressed roses attract trouble. Strong roses keep blooming through it. Number 10. Work with the rose's bloom cycle instead of fighting it. This final secret is the one that ties everything together. Even repeat blooming roses don't usually flower at maximum intensity every single day without pause. They bloom in waves. A flush of flowers, then a short recovery, then another push. The gardeners who get the most blooms are the ones who understand that rhythm and support it instead of expecting nonstop performance without reset. Here's what that looks like. After a flush, deadhead promptly. Water deeply. Feed on schedule. Remove anything weak or diseased. Then let the plant rebuild. Don't overreact if it pauses for a moment. That pause is not failure. That pause is preparation. When the rose has what it needs, it comes back with another round. This is also where patience matters. People often see that short resting period and start throwing random products at the plant. More feed, more water, more pruning, more fussing. That usually makes things worse. A productive rose is not a plant you constantly interfere with. It is a plant you support intelligently and then let do its job. So there you have it. 10 proven secrets that turn roses from occasional bloomers into repeat performers. Start with roses bred to rebloom. Give them full sun. Feed for flowers, not just foliage. Water deeply. Mulch the roots. Prune for strong new flowering wood. Deadhead properly. Cut blooms often. Keep the air moving. Stay ahead of pests and disease, and work with the plant's natural bloom cycle instead of fighting it. If you only apply 2 or 3 of these this season, you'll still see a noticeable difference, especially if you fix your deadheading, deep watering, and feeding routine. Those 3 alone can completely change how productive your roses are. Then, once you see the results, layer in the rest, and your garden will start looking like the kind of rose garden people assume takes years of expert care. If this helped you, hit subscribe because I make simple, practical growing guides like this every week for people who want better results without all the fluff. And tell me in the comments, which of these rose secrets do you think most gardeners get wrong? And what kind of roses are you growing right now? I'd love to hear what's blooming in your garden. Now go grow something beautiful, and I'll see you in the next one.